Welcome. It's a pleasure to share the panel with Alejandra Arbat, Eugenio Garcia, and José Lamas, leaders at Globant Enterprise AI and Globant Coda. Okay, tell us a little about the initiatives you are carrying out, who they are aimed at, and fundamentally, what problems they solve. Eugenio.
Well, it's a pleasure, Matías. So, Globant Enterprise AI is aimed, obviously, at companies that need to have an AI adoption strategy. Today, at the business level, when we talk about AI, there are two very specific needs. One is having access to the technology brought by generative AI, and the other is how we combine this with corporate data. So in my case, my day-to-day focus is, really about how we actually create those important hubs where, on the one hand, we allow to connect you to this whole world of LLMs, and on the other hand, we also provide you with the connectivity you need to access your corporate data, so you can later combine all that to create agentic solutions.
Alejandra.
Hi, Maddie. How are you? Well, honestly, I think that when a company starts adopting artificial intelligence and creating solutions, a new big challenge arises, which is making sure that the entire company and organization can really start using these solutions that are being developed. So, my main focus is precisely on developing this space, which would essentially be like a collaborative hub of agents, so that all users can easily share the innovative solutions they've created, discover unique solutions made by others, search for them, use them, and orchestrate agents, and different types of solutions, so that in this way, artificial intelligence becomes part of the daily routine for everyone in the organization.
Great. And Jose, give us context about Globant Coda.
Of course, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as well. So, all of this obviously makes it much easier to create solutions with artificial intelligence. This can be used in any industry. But of course, for us, it was natural to start specifically with software development because that's what we do. So our first move was to create our own tools for that. But at the same time, it's a strategic tool because it's what allows us to offer solutions that help our own clients also transform their development. Globant Coda is an agentic solution focused precisely on the entire software development cycle. Not just coding, but also product areas, design, testing, and so on. That's Globant Coda.
All right, now that we've gotten a bit of context, I want to start this conversation with a thought and a statistic that comes from an MIT report from a few months ago, where they mentioned that 95% of company initiatives were not seeing a return, a real impact on the business. And this wasn't because the technology didn't work. It was because they fell into what they call pilot hell. On the other hand, every single week, we are consistently seeing truly remarkable and extraordinary advances in terms of new models and new capabilities that are coming to the market, which really leads me to ask myself, if the technology exists and really has the power to transform, what's really causing that enormous gap and creating such a challenge for companies to actually generate that impact? So, Eugenio, you're in constant conversation with clients. Tell us a bit about what their pain points are, what they're bringing up, what challenges you see for them when it comes to adopting or implementing an AI strategy.
Yeah, so lately, in many of the meetings that I've attended and participated in, when I've been with different clients from various industries and sectors, and of course with our own internal team, what we see first and foremost is companies' significant concern about how to maintain strict confidentiality and robust security of the sensitive information they're going to process through these advanced artificial intelligence models. That's like the very first barrier, the initial fear or hesitation that needs to be overcome before moving forward. Then you run into the issue of, okay, how do we make sure that the use of this technology follows all and each of the security policies? I mean, think of the compliance policies that are already defined in the company. Well, let me tell you, when you arrive at a company, it's not like it's a green field where you can just go in and build an entirely new solution from scratch. I mean, you have to adapt to what's already there. And once we overcome those initial barriers, we run into analysis paralysis. It's kind of what we were talking about before. There's such a wide variety of models, and each one has its own strengths and weaknesses depending on the use case you want to apply it to. So, of course, there's that fear of getting locked into a single provider or a single model when you're trying to solve agentic solutions that fit the company's context. On top of that, agentic solutions don't make sense unless we tie them to the company's specific context. In other words, specifically to the information you have within the company. And those are the challenges we face every single day. And I think the issue of ROI, or return on investment, also comes up because we're really looking at artificial intelligence very much from the perspective of personal productivity or solving specific tasks. And we're not really seeing it as a tool that's actually here to fundamentally transform the way we work internally within the company by leveraging and utilizing all the information and knowledge that already exists and is available in organizations.
All right, so what are the main key capabilities or strengths that Globant Enterprise AI currently offers and makes available to help various organizations today overcome these problems?
Well, actually, to be able to answer that, let me tell you just a bit briefly about how Globant Enterprise AI came about. I mean, it was actually born out of our internal needs, specifically arising from when we started to use these advanced LLMs, for example, in collaboration with Jose's team, to see how we could effectively generate code, as well as how we could create comprehensive test cases. And that need to switch between models very quickly. And that was the first, let's say, link in realizing that we needed something that would let us switch quickly, that would let us experiment, but at the same time, we needed traceability, observability, to understand how these agents we were building were responding. And for example, a very basic thing was not to leave a loop running in an agent that, before you know it, ends up costing us thousands of dollars in token consumption. So, well, I think Jose can tell you about his own experience.
That never happened to us. But yes, having things quickly available, easily accessible, whether it's older models or a new model comes out and the next day we know we have it available, was fundamental for us because it allowed us to be really agile in testing new things quickly, or even for different needs, to be able to try out different models, knowing that you have that. I don't know, processing videos isn't the same as processing audio or processing code, etc. And it even gives us the versatility that nowadays our agents can easily use any of these models or systems separately. That is, for different applications, we use different models, and in some cases, we even give them the option for the agent itself. There's an agent that decides, based on the question or the input it receives, which model or agent to use for those things.
Of course, yes, I mean, in a context of uncertainty, that's fundamental, and it's a context we're living in today with technology moving so fast. So being able to adapt and take control of it is key. But you also reminded me of the book Reshuffle, where they specifically mention that it's not just about the ability to automate processes, but also about the crucial capacity to coordinate effectively with others. And in an organization, coordination truly revolves around its established processes and its critical data. So you see, there's a big difference between the AI we see for general consumer use and what happens when we get into an organization. It's about how we coordinate with the entire context of that organization. So tell us a bit, Eugenio, about our Globant Enterprise AI platform. How can we integrate efficiently AI into our organization, into any given organization?
Well, all right. Let's see. The first point then was, can we achieve that flexibility, that connection hub with the different models? The next thing was, okay, how do we manage to have a connection hub with corporate data? So basically what we've done there is build different connectors. I mean, in the end, corporate information isn't just in databases, it's in countless. sources of information, which can be documents or the APIs that already exist from the systems being used. So obviously, at first, we initially began by creating connectors for this data, but then with the emergence, for example, of the Model Context Protocol standard, it really opened the door for us to say, okay, there's a new standard that now allows us to quickly add more tools to the agents, because in the end, agents will only be really useful to the extent that we give them all the necessary tools so they can take action, not just read contextual information, but actually be able to do things in the end. What we've achieved then with this is the ability to connect to all available models and the ability to connect to all the corporate data and to combine them when creating agents.
Awesome. And regarding what you mentioned about the corporate hub, where I connect this data, we then have what we call the agent hub, which gives an organization the ability to create different agents to tackle tasks, automate processes, or even rethink those processes. Well, it's not just about putting AI into processes, but actually rethinking them with AI, right? Tell us a bit about how that building hub works.
Well, in that case, you see, it's like we've been raising the level of abstraction, right? I mean, we started with more technical teams, asking ourselves what tools we needed to provide the technical teams. And then, how can we, in practical terms, start getting closer to users we call builders or creators who aren't necessarily technical? So we created our own agent, which we call Iris. Essentially, what Iris does is, in fact, help these users create those agents. In other words, it assists users in building their own agents. Basically, any user today, at this moment, can use Iris to simply and easily describe the problem they want to solve, right? They can do this using their own words and natural language. And Iris will seamlessly and automatically define the prompt for you, and then select from among hundreds of available models the one that's best suited for the specific context that you're trying to address. What is the best reasoning strategy for that agent? And fundamentally, among the hundreds of tools and connections we can have to everything we were talking about, which tools are the best for that particular case? Just by using a chat, I'm already creating an agent. I can test it right there, and if I'm satisfied with the result, I can share it with the organization so that others can start using it.
I remember that we have a really interesting anecdote from back when we had just launched Iris. The marketing team came over to our workspace and they were honestly kind of amazed and surprised because, people who might not have any technical knowledge at all, who definitely aren't developers, were suddenly able to create their very own agent that actually helped them generate marketing content for their daily work tasks. And it was a truly real wow moment for them.
Well, you're touching on a key point there, and now I want to talk with you about that, which is also the democratization of artificial intelligence. I mean, the real experts in the business, in their processes, are the people in the organization who aren't necessarily technical. So bringing technology closer to them in this way really helps a lot so that they can be involved. But could you tell us a little more about your experience with what it means to democratize artificial intelligence within an organization?
Well, I think that when a company starts interacting with artificial intelligence solutions, something happens. What actually happens is pretty much what usually happens when you start experimenting with any new product. That famous adoption curve appears, where on one end you have the early adopters, who are the users that quickly jump in to try things out and start creating AI solutions. And on the other end, you have the users who are more hesitant, who are waiting to see the value that others are experiencing. The thing is, adopting artificial intelligence isn't optional for companies. It's a must. And I also think it needs to happen quickly because everything we're experiencing is happening very fast. So, for example, what happened to us at Globant? When we made these tools available to create solutions, to create agents, many users started building solutions. But of course, they either did it individually or that knowledge or work ended up locked within teams. So the knowledge ended up being trapped in isolated silos. And another thing we started to notice was that maybe one area or department was developing an artificial intelligence agent to solve a specific need they had, and maybe another team, without even knowing it, was also developing.
Doing the same thing from scratch again? Yes, we saw that happen in several cases.
Exactly. So at that point, we said, well, clearly we need a dedicated space, essentially in order to make all the various innovative solutions being created within the company available so they can be shared. And that's how this agent hub was born, which is precisely this space, not just for sharing, but also so that people can, as I mentioned before, in this same place, use solutions that even others have created so they can run them, so they can orchestrate artificial intelligence solutions. And in this way, it starts to spread throughout the whole company. So within this hub, what we allow is that perhaps a user who is actually the creator of a solution goes through a publishing workflow. Then after that, it also goes through a curation process. And once, let's say, it goes through that whole process, it gets published and is available for anyone to use.
And is it changing how people within an organization interact with AI?
Yes, I think that, well, we're, I believe, living through a very significant moment of transformation when it comes to the user experience. I mean, we're maybe moving from a time when we were all very used to interacting with various applications, following manual processes, clicking buttons, and searching for things manually, to this entirely new era of intelligent agents, where what we're really trying to do is put the user at the very center in order to solve the specific needs that the user has. So the idea is that an agent can help the user to successfully accomplish whatever tasks they may need to handle in each particular case, providing support and assistance as required. So, well, what we did was, when we developed the experience within the platform, we did it with this idea of being in a moment of transition. So, on one hand, we also included Iris, an agent who accompanies you throughout the experience, not just to create, but also to help you find the solution that best matches your needs, and to help you execute the solutions you need to implement. And this agent has the context of everything that's happening within the platform. And that's exactly why it can help you throughout the entire experience. And on the other hand, yes?
Sorry, an important point about that is actually the traceability that still remains. In fact, we've been collecting valuable and detailed insights about what kinds of uses are happening with the agents within the company, thanks to all those interactions that are taking place with the different agents.
That's information the organization didn't have before. And they'll be able to use it to understand those behaviors.
Exactly. What's happening is, well, since we're currently in this unique moment of transition, we're still keeping some of the more traditional ways of discovering solutions. For example, using a search bar or being able to filter results. And what we're essentially trying to achieve is to have the best of both worlds, meaning to combine contextual intelligence with maybe also keeping user control.
Well, after this journey where we create, govern, democratize, and make it available for consumption, sum it up for me. What's the impact? What impact does the Agents Hub create in an organization?
Look, for me, above all else, the impact has to do with the cultural transformation that this generates. I mean, it's not just about enabling tools or a technical matter. I think the most important thing happening here is this profound cultural change, which, of course, everything we're developing helps to improve productivity, increase efficiency, enhance the quality of work, and integrate it into daily life. It also helps a lot, obviously, to break down silos. As I mentioned before, about the work people do, but I think above all, I believe we're helping to change the mindset that's needed for this new, as Eugenio said earlier, for this new way of working that we need to adopt, which is like flipping a switch and saying, we're not just following the same processes as before, but now using artificial intelligence. I mean, this has to mean real change, a truly complete and fundamental transformation in the way we're actually working. So, above all, I really think it's an essential enabler for this to start permeating throughout the entire company and to gradually become an integral part of the organization's DNA.
You just touched on a point that was mentioned earlier, not just about automation or assistance, but also about coordination and collaboration, which is something we see a lot as well. On Globant Coda's side, we're doing things for different stages of development, but the ease with which things can be discovered, coordinated, and how people can discover other things and participate in other processes is a radical change. Because it's no longer just about having assistance to do the task at hand, but about having the ability to see much more clearly what others are doing and even collaborate with them. I mean, it's, for example, someone who primarily focuses on the design side, but today their deliverables might, for instance, include a prototype of something actually working, meaning they're actively getting involved in the coding part as well.
Now that I have you here, Jose, I'm really interested in your experience and your point of view because you faced a challenge similar to the one our audience is dealing with right now. Yeah, the challenge of taking on the task of transforming our industry, to develop the agents that are going to transform our business and our industry. Tell us a bit about what that experience was like, the obstacles you faced, and what you learned.
Yeah, well, let's see. Like I said before, for us it was natural to start with code. We live and breathe it, and our first experiences were with code. What at one point was the code fixer, which even focused on a very specific use case. I initially wanted to fix a bug, and then it gradually evolved into a general purpose coding agent, where I can ask it, I need to build an app from scratch, or I want to modify this app, or I want to document it, and so on. But at the same time, other important initiatives also started to gradually emerge and become noticeable in different areas. And like I mentioned before, it's not just that we were doing it because we work on it, but it also allowed us to take advantage of it for our own development projects.
In fact, we're using it across all our teams, all the time. I mean, we do a lot of dog fooding, both with the core platform itself and with all of the different agents that the Globant Coda team is actively building and developing so that they can help us spot errors and issues much faster than we otherwise could. They are also able to suggest potential solutions for those problems and to generate all of the necessary automated test case work that is required. Honestly, we've also noticed a huge change in how all of this significantly speeds up and improves our daily work, which is essentially about building a comprehensive platform, and of course, we do that by programming.
Yep, and just like we program, we also have to manage processes and products. And so agents emerged that, given a recording of a conversation with clients or client interviews, could automatically generate epics and user stories from that, and then take those same epics and user stories and turn them into ready-made application flow designs, into specific page designs and components ready for the implementation team to pick up. That was...
Right there you mark a turning point, right? Because let's see, how do you tackle a problem like that? What we called a software development cycle seems simple, but in reality, it's a super complex process with lots of back and forth, involving several intermediate steps, and it's not always the same from one project to another, or from one team to another. So, how do you tackle a problem like that? Do you build it piece by piece? Do you look at the big picture? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so what we tried to do was maximize how easy it is to start using it, meaning being able to integrate ourselves directly whenever possible into the different scenarios of each type of work. For example, the designer works in Figma and has an agent that generates flows, wireframes, and designs for him, but they remain in control from within Figma. In other words, the operation and the outcome are managed inside Figma. For someone making product decisions, they get artifacts, such as detailed documentation or specifications that can be stored in Jira or any other story management tool to use. For those who work with code, what we specifically aimed for was to truly maximize the overall possibility of specialization and seamless integration with the natural workflows and processes of each individual process. But at the same time, in order to truly encourage and enable effective knowledge sharing, that is, ensuring that the output of one agent can seamlessly become the input for the next agent in the process.
In other words, the expert is still there, but more in a supervisory role within the same environments.
And in a way that's comfortable for them, because it's not like now you have to change your way of working and switch to another tool or a different workflow. They continue in their own natural environment.
Well, but a project also involves a lot of coordination. This is also reflected in the agents, in their behavior. Do they also need to coordinate?
Yes, so you have both things. You have the possibility of individual executions, focusing. Actually, that really makes adoption much easier because it's a segmented option. I can, for example, start adopting the assistance part for testing within a team and not change anything else, and then let it expand into other areas. In another team, maybe they only use the design part. In another team, they use the code part. But that also allows, going back to what Alejandra said, for them to discover that there are other things and that some things connect with others, which makes it easier for adoption to expand throughout the entire development cycle.
Well, we're almost at the end, and I think everyone's message has been clear and strong. It's no longer optional for a company to have a strategy around AI and its adoption. So I want you to tell me in a few words why you think building this strategy around Globant Enterprise AI is the smartest and safest path.
At Globant Coda, we had our own experience using the platform to generate all these agents for the software development cycle effectively and efficiently. And beyond that, it even allowed us to reinvent our processes and even reinvent our business model.
Well, in short, for me personally, as I mentioned before, it's truly essential for organizations to find a suitable platform that genuinely helps them adopt artificial intelligence throughout the entire organization. And Globant Enterprise AI is precisely an enabler that truly allows you to move from individual artificial intelligence initiatives to a much broader collective intelligence, which in turn lets you share, create, and publish solutions, find solutions, use them, and also build on top of solutions that have been created by others. So in this way, we are enhancing knowledge, we are evolving more quickly, and we are embedding artificial intelligence into the DNA of the organization.
Look, what we've done with Globant Enterprise AI is build that golden path for AI adoption within companies. And we built it not only based on our own internal experience, but also on what we've already done with our clients. This is where we've reached out to all these clients and connected all their corporate data with all these hundreds of AI models we have available at the platform, combining them to create agentic solutions within the context of the company's information. And all of this is built on a layer of observability and security that alleviates those fears or concerns we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation.
Well, I just want to thank you, and I invite the audience to stay with us. There's much more on-demand deep dives to offer you. And also, at the end of the event, you'll have a link where you can register for Globant Enterprise AI, and I encourage you to try it out firsthand. Thank you very much.